Welcome to Hello Darlink, the show that brings you guests who make a difference in our lives and help to make our world a better place. Today our guest is David Carter, CEO of Austral Fisheries. In David's 44 years long career, from deckhand to the CEO, he has managed to push sustainability and climate change to the forefront of lawful fishing. As such, Austral Fisheries has been carbon neutral for 5 years now. David has achieved outstanding recognition for his long-time work in the industry. He is recipient of the Lifeline Achievement Award from the Marine Stewardship Council in 2020 and has been nominated for Momentum Visionary Man of the Year 2021. Let's talk to the man who says, it's not about fish, it's about people. Hello, darling.
Hello, darling.
Welcome to my show.
Thank you very much.
So good to see you. How does it feel to be Momentum Visionary Man of the Year?
It's a bit humbling, really. It's like there must be a mistake here somewhere. There needs to be somebody else picking up this award.
Okay, let's clarify. Let's clarify your vision. Let's talk today about your wonderful work, your vision for the future, and your dreams, and the man behind the CEO. David, may I ask you, can you tell me about you growing up?
My growing up, son of a vet, Gippsland, Victoria, good family, went to boarding school for a while. That was formative as a teenager, and then schooled in Melbourne. Ended up schooling in some fancy big name school in Melbourne, and did a science degree at Melbourne University. Through that, it's like imbued with a father who was always kind of interested about things sustainable, and I just remember him always thinking like fossil fuel was going to run out. This was like over 40 years ago, so that was all the starts of things. But in the middle of that, I enjoyed scuba diving in Bass Strait before that was a bit of a thing. Did quite a lot of ocean racing, sailing. So by the time I was 20, I'd done 5,000 miles of ocean racing events in quite small boats, including a couple of Melbourne Hobart races and a Sydney Hobart race, and that sort of gave me that connection with the ocean. So
now, from deckhand to CEO.
Well,
yes. Can you tell me who was your mentor? Did you have any mentors? How did you make the journey?
So that journey really got to the end of my science degree. I didn't really want to carry on study, so I felt like I had to do something useful. I thought it'd be a good idea to go and join the fish business. So at that stage, the world was moving to declare 200-mile exclusive zones. I wrote 40 letters to all sorts of fishing companies. I got 2 responses. Long story short, one of the responses, and I was in Melbourne at the time, one of the responses was from Murray, France, in Perth.
Yes.
So as loving mothers would do, she bought me a plane ticket so that I could come and have a chat. So Murray became a very important part of my life, really.
David, now in your journey, your love for making the world a better place, when did it really start? When was the turning point?
I think about that. And it's just been the journey. So it's really been who I am, part of me. As I said earlier, the influence of my father is not to be downplayed. Even 40 years ago, he was essentially off-grid. You know, he did solar panels, batteries, vegetable gardens, his own cow. And so as opportunities presented in my career, it's been able to use science to deliver better fisheries management outcomes, and now it's the evidence that suggests we need to do more with climate, that we continue to sort of incorporate into like this beautiful marriage of like who I am as a person and the opportunities I have in this business.
Your trip to Antarctica, that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to get out of you.
You're fishing now, Barbara.
I'm fishing. There's something fishy about my guest today.
Yeah.
Your trip to Antarctica. Apparently, it was the turning point in your career to make.
It was, that's absolutely true. So our mutual friend Giulio Delafite,
That's
in
right.
fact, was putting together these crazy adventures where amazing people go to amazing places to do amazing things. And the first of those was this trip to the Antarctic. So that was in 2015, and that was something of a turning point. And like at that stage, the climate debate in Australia was still quite divided and highly politicised. And climate was one of those things you just sort of didn't talk about in polite company.
Really?
And yet, with that group of people, it was just a given. And so, essentially, I felt that from that point, I had really permission to talk about that which had not been talked about before.
Not just talk, but do it.
And then do something about it. Yeah.
Was it a moment where you saw the failing glaciers that it became so?
It was a catalyst for a whole bunch of things. So, because in fisheries we are seeing firsthand the impact of changing climate on oceans and fish stocks. There was no hiding from it. What was different was this permission piece. So this piece which says we need to be doing something. We each have a role to play, and then that inquiry, which is, well, okay, I can't influence the politics. I can't influence the broader geopolitics, but I can do something myself. So what does that look like?
Amazing. And Austral Fisheries became the first in the world carbon-free company now for 5 years.
Carbon neutral fishing company.
That's right.
The distinction between fishing and aquaculture is important, but we are still the only so-claimed commercial fishing operation on the planet.
Incredible.
Best I know.
Give me the time frame from the moment you decided to do something about it to a date happen.
Yeah, so really from leaving that boat in the Antarctic to working through the necessary bits and finally having no less than Julie Bishop attend our commitment, our coming out ceremony was just over 400 days.
Incredible. So just over a year.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Why was it? It was obviously very important that Julie Bishop attended and supported the ceremony and the initiative.
Yeah.
She was involved in the time also in this kind of a.
Yeah. So Julie was important because she'd been part of the important Paris discussions
That's
around
right.
climate. So she had a personal leadership piece. She was also, I think, within the coalition government at the time, a credible voice for greater ambition in government, and I was keen to support the notion that business is moving on these things, and government would be well served to pay attention or be left behind. So it was a bit strategic to have Julie there, but she was very supportive.
As always is. Huh? Another question: why did you choose forestry credits?
Put simply, the view I took was can be quite a complex space, and given that we burn about 9 million litres of diesel, I just took the view that if we make the mess, then we clean it up, and the only simple way of doing that is planting trees.
Wonderful. And I watched TED Talk. How was it? How was the experience on
TED
the TED
Talks.
Talk?
Yeah,
Wonderful.
That's challenging, and I was warned when I started the journey that, like for folks that do a bit of speaking, this is not trivial.
Yes.
And so highly scripted. The script had to be sort of squared away with all sorts of parts of the TED organisation, and then you realise that if you're going to make use of that time, you've got to write it all out, and then once you've written it all out, you realise you've got to memorise it. Now, as a 63-year-old, I have trouble remembering what I had for breakfast. So that was...
I meant to ask you.
That's right. That's not trivial.
So you didn't have any screens, nothing?
Nothing, no
All
cues,
completely...
restricted PowerPoint presentations.
Yes.
And it's just you and the red dot, really. So.
But altogether, amazing experience.
Great experience. Yeah, it was
Fantastic.
definitely a bucket list number.
Now, healthy oceans, wealthy oceans.
Yeah.
You're also very passionate about something incredibly important that hasn't been spoken too much about, and that's illegal fishing.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask you, when did you get involved first time in pursuing this cause?
The illegal fishing was kind of presented to us full force in the late 1990s as we started to develop Australia's sub-Antarctic fisheries. And in fact, really from almost the very first moment we arrived in Australia's Antarctic territory around Heard Island, we were confronted with not one but 6 illegal fishing vessels. And so that was that clear and present danger. So here we were 4,000 kilometres from any other part of mainland Australia in Australian sovereign waters with foreigners helping themselves.
Wow.
So we had no choice but to act, really.
The environmental, the financial impact that illegal fishing creates, can you give us, our viewers, some kind of...
Well, it's kind of massive. So this fishery is for Patagonia toothfish, so it became quite notorious at the time. But as a licensed operator in a highly regulated environment, we had very heavy compliance costs. So we go to sea with not one but 2 observers, independent observers on board. We invest heavily in the science that supports sustainable fisheries. And then, of course, we run boats and crews, and all of that has to be done right. And what happens when you're competing with illegal fishing is the bad guys basically get a cost-free entry to the fishery. So they are plundering our resource, damaging our future, and then selling the fish into a market which at prices much depressed. So as a lawful operator, we're squeezed both from the production side and from the market side. So left unchecked, that would have led to essentially the commercial extinction of that fishery, as did happen for the South Africans and some of those territories further west in the Indian Ocean.
In 2003, you created coalition with Colto, which was, I believe, quite a turning point in the illegal fishing activity. Was it influenced by the Volga case around this time?
So many things were going on.
So many things. Can you tell us
So
most juicy stories?
Well, lots of juicy
Volga
stories.
case, Russian pirates.
Yeah.
I want to have a lot of viewers for our show, so just
a
give
lot
it
of viewers.
something we didn't speak about. You didn't speak about in your many interviews.
So the threat evolved. So
Yeah.
the early threat was from sort of a ragtag bunch of sort of South American pirates, and they're sort of not well organised. They were fairly easily seen off in the first wave. The second threat became much more potent. It was deliberate, purposeful, international organised crime with a ruthless approach to risk and its people.
Yeah.
And so we were involved in some interesting experiences. But at the end of the day, this is this is war, and so we were waging battles on many fronts in order to win the war. The Volga case, in particular, was one. Another one with the Lena was where we had turned the second mate on this particular vessel, had been arrested, brought to Australia.
Wow.
We had some commercial arrangements with this fellow that revealed.
And how do you make commercial arrangements with a fellow whom you fight?
So the boat was arrested, the crew was brought to the Seamen's Mission. His original approach was to a fisheries officer, and the Australian government isn't up for paying information, so we were circuitously introduced to this guy. He was a Spanish citizen, Spanish national, and we came to an arrangement where he really revealed an extraordinary amount of detail about how the illegal operations were run and managed and organised, and they're really this ruthless approach to loss. And so it was revelatory, and that was the catalyst for some pretty serious sort of next actions from ours.
Incredible.
And at that stage, we had quotes for sinking illegal boats. We had rewards posted in the port of in Indonesian ports where these boats were unloading. We had crazy arrangements for aerial surveillance. We submitted proposals to the French cabinet to operate out of the nearby island of the Kerguelen. The list is a mile long.
So it's not always a smooth sailing.
Not at all, not at all. Particularly in those waters, because we're at 52 latitude south, and there's regularly 60 knot plus storms go through there, and that's just another day at the office for these guys.
And your partnership with Sea Shepherd in 2015?
That came later.
Yes.
So really that early work in the 2000s significantly galvanised Australian government support, significantly improved legislative arrangements we have for bringing charges against illegal fishermen. The threat sort of subsided, but there were still about 6 boats that were very sticky. They were persistent, they were clever, they'd worked their way around the system. And then in 2015, Sea Shepherd took an interest in toothfish, and that was a bit scary at the time. The Sea Shepherd brand was for a fishing company. It was like, "Ooh, be careful." But I can say after a number of years of relationship with the local team that we have an extraordinary and trusting collaboration and a shared interest in a number of key things, which is the elimination of illegal fishing.
Yes.
And we did a joint on water operation off West Africa in that year 2016, and subsequently we collaborate on improving climate advocacy and doing something about marine ocean plastic.
So you continue the affiliation with Sea Shepherd?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it's a source of great personal and professional satisfaction and pride, really.
David, and the progress on fighting illegal fishing in last 20 years, yes, it's over 20 years. How would you rate it? How much was done?
I think we've done some incredible work. As far as toothfish is concerned, illegal fishing's effectively eliminated. Globally, the challenge for illegal fishing persists, but we have some really valuable tools to tackle that. And again, a plug for Sea Shepherd, the work they're now doing in West Africa, together with coastal states, to bring about better stewardship of those resources, the elimination of illegal fishing, the return of fish stocks to coasts and estuaries, and a new livelihood for locals. It's really, really special.
How wonderful! How wonderful! David, what's your vision for the next 10 years, for example? What can we expect from Austral Fisheries, from David Carter, as a visionary man? Where is your vision going?
Basically, my great hope, sort of my current commitment, is adopting the view that we can't claim to be sustainable whilst we use fossil fuels at this rate. Offsetting and planting trees is only temporary. We've got to find a way to do what we do without burning so much diesel.
Traditionally, I give my guest at the end of my interview a magic wand. You just got one. And you have 2 wishes, one for yourself and one for the world.
Oh God. I forfeit my personal wish for the world is to get on with decarbonisation, and don't be afraid. It's a host of opportunity comes with re-engineering the globe's energy system.
That brings me to another question. How can we, as the individuals, make a difference, contribute to making difference, everyone who watches us, to become more sustainable?
There's about choice. So we know that essentially we've got to halve the amount of emissions that we each put out in the next 10 years. The choices are around how we heat our homes, how we drive our cars, how we what we eat, our choice of food. I personally think we eat too much animal protein, and that might sound odd coming from someone in my position, but we need to think of animal protein as the garnish to the vegetables rather than the other way around. And I think it begins with simply doing your own carbon account, just figuring out, well, what is my carbon footprint? And you would be surprised just what choices you can make, whether it's fast fashion or transport choice or food choices that can make a difference.
David, thank you so much for making a difference, for making the world a better place, for your vision, and I look forward to seeing more of things to come.
Thank you.